What if the secret to peak physical fitness was discovered thousands of years ago? The ancient Greeks weren't just warriors, philosophers, and athletes. They were pioneers of fitness, developing training methods that still influence how we exercise today. From brutal combat sports to bodyweight mastery, their approach to strength and endurance was so effective that modern workouts still echo their techniques. But this wasn't just about looking good. It was a civic duty, a way of life, and sometimes a fight for survival. So, how did they train? What lessons can we steal from their methods? Grab your sandals because today, we're stepping into the gymnasium of ancient Greece.
Few civilizations have valued physical fitness as much as the city-states of ancient Greece. To the Greeks, athleticism wasn't just a pastime, it was a way of life, deeply woven into their culture, philosophy, and even their military training. From the legendary warriors of Sparta to the celebrated Olympians of Athens, strength and endurance were seen as virtues, essential for both personal glory and the defense of the city-state. In modern times, we hit the gym, lift weights, or run marathons, but the ancient Greeks had their own rigorous training methods, many of which still hold up today. The idea of a structured workout, complete with warm-ups, main exercises, and cool-downs, can trace its origins back to their training grounds. They may not have had high-tech fitness equipment, but they knew how to get results. Their philosophy of fitness went beyond just looking good. It was about discipline, resilience, and preparing for the challenges of war. Gymnasiums were at the heart of Greek cities, where young men trained under the watchful eyes of experienced athletes and philosophers alike. Even Socrates himself had strong opinions on the matter, believing that neglecting one's body was just as shameful as neglecting one's mind. Tonight, we'll explore how the Greeks built their legendary physiques, trained for combat and competition, and laid the groundwork for many of the fitness principles we still follow today. Long before modern sports stadiums and international competitions, the Greeks held athletic contests that would shape the foundation of sports as we know them today. The most famous of these was the Olympic Games, first recorded in 776 BCE in Olympia, a sanctuary dedicated to Zeus. Unlike today's Olympics, which feature hundreds of events and athletes from across the globe, the earliest games were far simpler, starting with just a single foot race. The very first recorded champion of the Olympics was a cook named Koroibos of Elis, who won the stad race, a sprint of roughly 600 feet. His prize, not a gold medal, but an olive wreath, and perhaps more importantly, eternal fame. The Greeks placed immense value on athletic excellence, and Olympic victors were treated as heroes, showered with gifts, poetry, and even free meals for life in their hometowns. Over time, the Olympic Games expanded to include more grueling and spectacular events, such as boxing, wrestling, chariot racing, and the infamous Pankration, a no-holds-barred combat sport that blurred the line between competition and survival. But these contests weren't just about personal achievement. Athletes competed to bring honor to their city-states, and the Games became a unifying force across the Greek world, drawing competitors from far and wide. Even in an era of constant warfare between city-states, a sacred truce was declared during the Olympics, allowing athletes and spectators safe passage to Olympia. For the Greeks, physical excellence wasn't just about vanity, it was a near-spiritual pursuit, a way to embody the gods themselves. After all, the most revered of their deities, Zeus and Heracles, were often depicted as paragons of strength and endurance. But beyond the glory and the spectacle, Greek athletics also laid the groundwork for structured training regimens. From strength-building exercises to endurance training, the principles established in these ancient contests would continue to shape fitness practices for millennia. Before barbells, dumbbells, or high-tech gym equipment, the Greeks sculpted their legendary physiques using the most accessible tool of all, their own bodies. Their approach to fitness was built around calisthenics, a training system that relied on bodyweight exercises to build strength, endurance, and agility. The word itself comes from the Greek kalos, meaning beautiful, and sthenos, meaning strength, emphasizing both form and function. Simple yet effective movements like push-ups, squats, lunges, and pull-ups were staples in the Greek training regimen. These exercises required no equipment, just discipline and consistency. Even more advanced techniques, such as handstands, one-arm push-ups, and muscle-ups, were practiced by elite athletes and warriors to develop explosive power. For sprinters and combat athletes, resistance training played a key role. Greek runners would train on sand, a method that increased resistance, strengthening their legs and improving endurance. They also ran in full battle armor, a practice that mimicked real battlefield conditions and ensured they were ready for war. This technique later proved invaluable at the Battle of Marathon, where Greek hoplites sprinted toward the Persian army under a hail of arrows, something they had unknowingly trained for in their gymnasiums. Then there was Milo of Croton, one of the most famous strongmen of the ancient world. Legend has it that Milo developed his unparalleled strength through the principle of progressive overload, by lifting a newborn calf onto his shoulders every day. As the calf grew, so did Milo's strength, until he was eventually carrying a full-grown bull. Whether the story is true or not, the underlying concept, gradually increasing resistance over time, is still a fundamental principle of modern strength training. Greek athletes also recognized the importance of recovery. They practiced cool-down routines, walked after training to promote circulation, and even enjoyed massages and hot baths. Physicians like Hippocrates and Galen documented the benefits of proper warm-ups, cool-downs, and rehabilitation techniques, laying the foundation for modern sports medicine. In every way, the Greek training philosophy was about more than just brute strength. It was about balance, discipline, and mastering one's own body. Whether they were preparing for competition, battle, or simply to uphold the ideal of physical perfection, their methods remain relevant even thousands of years later. If the Olympics showcased the Greeks' dedication to athletic excellence, then Pankration revealed their taste for sheer brutality. This ancient combat sport, a predecessor to modern mixed martial arts, MMA, was one of the most feared and respected events in Greek athletics. The name itself means all force, and that wasn't an exaggeration. Almost anything was allowed in the ring. A combination of boxing, wrestling, and raw street fighting, Pankration had only two rules: no biting and no eye gouging. Everything else, fair game. Fighters could punch, kick, choke, break bones, and even slam opponents into the ground. If that wasn't intense enough, Spartan versions of the sport allegedly removed even those two restrictions, making Pankration essentially a fight to the death. Unlike other Olympic sports, Pankration wasn't just about competition. It was a critical part of military training. The Greeks believed that mastering unarmed combat was essential for survival on the battlefield. Soldiers were expected to fight with weapons, but if they ever lost their spear or sword, they had to rely on their own hands. Many warriors trained in Pankration to develop resilience, strength, and an unshakable ability to endure pain. The historian Pausanias recorded tales of Pankration fighters who refused to surrender, even when unconscious. One legendary athlete, Aricion of Phegalia, was being choked to death in a match. In his final moments, he twisted his opponent's foot with such force that he broke it, forcing the other fighter to submit. Aricion won the match, posthumously. His lifeless body was crowned with an olive wreath, securing his place in history. Another philosopher, Philostratus, described a different kind of warrior, one who could absorb endless punishment yet still stand tall. He once witnessed a Pankration fighter who delivered brutal strikes but ultimately collapsed from exhaustion. His opponent, battered and bloodied but still standing, won simply by enduring the beating. This was the Greek philosophy of combat. Strength mattered, but resilience mattered even more. Pankration's influence didn't end in ancient Greece. The Romans later adopted it in their gladiatorial games, and today its legacy lives on in MMA and combat sports worldwide. The Greeks may not have had weight classes or referees stopping fights, but their brutal training methods laid the groundwork for modern martial arts disciplines. For the ancient Greeks, physical fitness wasn't just about personal glory, it was a duty to the state. In a world where city-states were constantly at war, a strong and capable population wasn't optional, it was a necessity. Every citizen was expected to maintain their body just as much as their mind, and those who neglected their physical condition were often looked down upon. No one embodied this belief more than the Spartans. From birth, Spartan boys were trained to become warriors, subjected to a grueling education system known as the agoge. Strength, endurance, and combat skills were prioritized above all else. Weak infants were abandoned, and those who survived were raised in an environment that tested their limits daily. They trained barefoot, fought each other for sport, and were even encouraged to steal food just to sharpen their survival instincts. But fitness wasn't just for warriors. Even in Athens, where intellectual pursuits were highly valued, training was seen as essential for a well-rounded citizen. Socrates himself warned against neglecting the body, saying it was a disgrace to grow old without seeing what one's body was capable of. To him, a weak body led to a weak mind. Greek gymnasiums weren't just places to exercise, they were centers of education and philosophy. Athletes trained alongside scholars, discussing politics, ethics, and strategy between workouts. The idea was simple. A fit body was a reflection of a fit mind, and the two had to be developed together. Even Greek physicians understood the value of exercise. Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine, believed that eating alone will not keep a man well. He must also take exercise. Galen, another famous physician, studied the effects of different workouts and wrote some of the earliest books on sports science. The warm-up, the structured workout, and even the concept of an active cool-down can all be traced back to their teachings. The Greeks saw fitness as a lifelong pursuit, not just something for young men. Even as they aged, citizens were expected to keep moving. Their philosophy of training was about longevity, discipline, and balance, principles that still shape modern fitness today. And so, thousands of years later, the legacy of Greek training lives on. Whether it's through calisthenics, combat sports, structured workouts, or even our modern Olympic Games, the foundations laid in ancient Greece continue to influence how we approach fitness. They understood that a strong body leads to a strong mind, and that lesson remains timeless.
The ancient Greeks didn't just train for sport, they trained for excellence, survival, and honor. Whether through calisthenics, brutal combat sports like Pankration, or endurance challenges, their fitness philosophy was built on discipline, resilience, and balance. They understood the importance of structured workouts, recovery, and the mind-body connection, ideas that remain fundamental to modern exercise science. From the Olympic champions to the Spartan warriors, their legacy lives on in our gyms, our sports, and even our daily workouts. So whether you're lifting weights, running on sand, or just trying to stay active, remember, you're following in the footsteps of history's first true athletes. Now the real question is, would you have survived in an ancient Greek gym? Let us know in the comments. So, what do you think? Would you have thrived in an ancient Greek gymnasium? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our other deep dives into history right here on the channel.